Democrats are calling it the ultimate betrayal. Republicans say he may have saved the entire nation, but now that the Build Back Better bill is dead as a doornail, is West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin a hero or the devil? Yesterday morning, the moderate Democrat shocked the political world when he went on Fox News Sunday, hosted by Bret Baier, and said this.
If I can't go home and explain it to the people of West Virginia, I can't vote for it. And I cannot vote to continue with this piece of legislation. I just can't. I've tried everything humanly possible. I can't get there.
He's like, whoa, wait, what? Democrats, socialists, and progressives instantly lost their collective minds. Watch this.
When I think about this no, this was a no all along.
Let him vote no in front of the whole world.
He waited until there was a moment of minimal pressure.
All I want for Christmas is a senator that has compassion for the American people and not contempt.
We all knew that Senator Manchin couldn't be trusted. You know, the excuses that he just made, I think, are complete.
You watch your language. There are children watching MSNBC. No, there aren't. Oh, I wish I could make a cocktail with their tears. I would call it a Mancherita or a Manchtini or a Cosmanchpolitan. All right, I'll stop. But you get the idea. I like booze. We all like booze, and I can't stand the squad, and I toast to their anger. Anyway, the liberal media, they're not happy either. Oh.
Some breaking news. Senator Manchin has just said that he is a firm no on this legislation.
Manchin is a mercurial person to be dealing with from people I've talked to within the White House. We know this to be true. And he, you know, may want to be a kingmaker in some ways when it comes to this legislation.
This is Joe Manchin wanting to extend the Joe Manchin show, period.
Period. Well, guess what? He just got re-upped for another season. Congratulations, buddy. The Biden administration claims they're very confident the bill will eventually pass, but that seems a little hard to believe right now because it's a 50-50 Senate. Democrats can't get a win without Joe Manchin, and today the senator blamed the White House staff for his no vote. Watch.
You know me, always willing to work and listen and try. I just got to the wit's end, and they know the real reason what happened. They won't tell you, and I'm not going to. There's basically, and it's staff. It's staff-driven. I understand staff. It's not the president. It's the staff. And they drove some things, and they put some things out that were absolutely inexcusable. They know what it is, and that's it.
Ooh, what is this from the staff? In other words, political pressure. It is not going to work on Senator Manchin, but does his vote prove the progressive movement is not the all-powerful force it pretends to be? Well, let's get into it with tonight's party panel. We've got Versus Media podcast host and the Spectator USA contributing editor, Stephen L. Miller. And we've also got the host of The Richard Fowler Show. It is a radio show, also a Fox News contributor. I was on The Fight with him Friday, and we had fantastic ratings because our chemistry is undeniable. It is Richard Fowler. And the Foundation for Economic Education writer and liberty activist, the one and only Olivia Rondo, is back. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Woo! Thank you.
Still like beer.
You still like beer. Very good. I'm happy to hear it, and we celebrate that. Stephen L. Miller, what was the issue with the staff? Joe Manchin said that as though we all knew what he was talking about, but for people who are just sort of tuning in, what does that mean?
It means primarily this administration is run for journalists on Twitter out of kind of the comm shop. We saw how they're, you know, smoothing out journalists to get better coverage. That's generally run out through Jen Psaki. And then, of course, they're paying attention to Twitter trends, and they're not really paying attention to kind of what's going on and what people kind of need. And that's why he's getting so much scorn from the squad and Ocasio-Cortez. Joe Manchin's not showing up at the Met Gala here, okay? He knows who his constituency is. He goes to work for them. And whether or not you agree or disagree with that, there's not much getting around him. And so I think he's kind of firing back on the White House. People forget that, you know, Kamala Harris went to West Virginia without, you know, notifying him and went on radio and print and slammed him. So I think that this is his subtle way of saying, you know, guys, you need to cut the shenanigans, and I'll talk to the president when he's around. I guess that's like from the hours of 1 to 3 or something. And maybe then they'll kind of cut a deal, but kind of coming out and flaming him like they did yesterday isn't going to do it.
Well, it's interesting, Richard, because, of course, Senator Bernie Sanders said, this is not how democracy works. This is exactly how democracy works. That's why you vote for a particular senator, so that person represents your needs. This is a 50-50 Senate. There's an awful lot of arrogance here from angry progressives who feel like there's some sort of a mandate. That does not exist.
Listen, I hear folks out there who are very excited about Joe Manchin's decision. And if you look from my perspective, look at it this way: Joe Manchin has tried to negotiate with this White House and negotiate with Democrats in the United States Senate for the past couple of months. Every time he set a new bright line or a new red line, Democrats said, "Okay, we will follow that red line or that bright line." And so now that we get to this part of the negotiations, where we should be getting ready to vote on a piece of legislation, for him to automatically go and say, "Okay, now I'm going to vote no," to me that seems disingenuous. When the whole entire time, Democrats are working with the red line and the framework that you set up as to why you wouldn't vote for it in the first time. So at the beginning of this debate, if Joe Manchin was going to be a no vote, he should have said that 3 months ago, so we could have all moved on. But instead, he kept this thing going to come now, right days before Christmas, days before the early income child tax credit runs out, to say, okay, now I'm a no. That to me is disingenuous.
Yeah, but
I'm just saying.
I'm sorry, but the child care tax credit, that was disingenuous, because what he was saying is it's cruel to include something like that that only exists for 1 year, and then to keep it at its advertised cost, you have to take that away. He said that's unfair, that's cruel, but if you keep it in there, then it becomes a $3 trillion bill, and that's what he cannot go back to his voters and try to have them stomach. I don't have a problem with this, Olivia. I really don't. I don't care if Joe Manchin stays a Democrat. I don't care if he becomes a Republican. What it shows to me is there are not two parties in this country. There are not. We need a multi-party system, because you have people with obviously vastly different philosophies trying to shoehorn themselves into this two-party stink tent. Go ahead, girl.
Yep, exactly. I mean, this is exactly what I hate about partisanship and partisan and hyper-polarized politics. People are acting like Joe Manchin is a traitor to the Democratic Party and a traitor to leftist or liberal values, when really he's representing his people. He's representing his constituency. The people of West Virginia do not want the Build Back Better bill. It's as simple as that. He is not serving AOC. He is not serving Joe Biden. He is not serving all these progressives in Congress and all the other Democratic senators by making this decision. He is serving the people who put him in office. West Virginia is a conservative state, and it's actually a miracle that a Democrat is in office in a conservative state in the first place. So to keep that office, he's going to do what the people want. And also, I've seen some experts say that he's basically saving America from financial and economic disaster. I mean, we're trying to pass a $1 trillion bill when we're seeing like massive inflation, massive spending. It's just not the right move from any way I look at it.
Yes, great point. And the other thing the White House wasn't able to do is explain how this bill would stave off inflation. They can't do that because it's only going to exacerbate it. That's obvious. But Jen Psaki stands up there and goes, well, 17 Nobel Prize winning economists say this is great, and it's actually going to be cheaper than nothing. That is not true. That is a falsehood. Well, the Build Back Better
and they're
blunder.
all Paul Krugman.
That's right. Paul Krugman can eat a sack of nards. The Build Back Better blunder is just the latest in an avalanche of failures bearing the Sleepy Joe presidency. A new NPR PBS Marist poll shows his approval rating is down to 41% after tanking the economy, torturing Americans with COVID mandates, flooding the border, and botching the Afghanistan withdrawal. So with polls like this one, will it cause the Biden team to rethink their unpopular agenda, or will they just keep doubling down on the same failed policies, which, Stephen, oftentimes include just throwing money at everything? Cost and consequences be damned.
Yeah, they don't know how to change course. I mean, Joe Biden was elected primarily on one thing, and that was getting COVID under control, shutting the virus down. He said that time after time after time after time after time. And instead of focusing on that, instead of getting home testing out, instead of, fast-tracking therapeutics and over-the-counter medications, he decided to go screw up Afghanistan. And then he decided we're going to go push Build Back Better. And then he decided, we're going to try and get infrastructure done, which they did. Good job. You earned your 40%. 90% approval, I guess. And so people aren't dumb. They see that he was elected kind of on this, you know, the nation's grandpa empathy and competence. And we haven't seen competence on COVID, and we didn't see empathy with the Afghanistan pullout. And he hasn't really recovered from that. If he had gotten more of these steps with COVID under control at the beginning of his term, then he probably could have pushed Build Back Better or whatever. And they decided not to do that. They decided to use it to their advantage to try and get all of this stuff shoved through. And here we are today. We're re-implementing mask mandates. Schools are shutting down. We have a new variant, and it's just complete panic outside in places like New York and D.C., and he bears a large responsibility for that.
He does. He said that he was going to get a handle on the virus, Richard, and he was going to defeat the virus with his bare, bony hands. That hasn't happened. So is that incompetence? Is it lack of focus? It's got to be more than optics. There has to be something more to it than that.
Listen, I think there's no question that there is some trouble coming from this White House, right? With that being said, I think if you were to take a look at COVID very clearly, you will see that under Joe Biden, we've gotten more Americans vaccinated than ever, right? He created a plan to get folks vaccinated.
More Americans dead.
Does that solve for the fact that we're dealing with a new variant? Hold on, wait a minute. No, wait a minute. I didn't interrupt you.
Hold up.
Right? And to be very clear, I think, you know, we can't, that doesn't take away from the fact that we're dealing with two different variants that are more severe than the first COVID variant that we had. One is caused folks to get sicker, the Delta variant, and one is spreading faster, the Omicron variant. And so this White House is trying to handle themselves out of both of those situations. Is there trouble happening in this White House? Of course there are. But to say that it's all doom and gloom, I think that's the wrong perspective to have.
It's not all great, and that's the problem. Lying to people and trying to pretend that everything's great, Olivia, when people walk around and they're yet again in masks and their kids aren't going to school, they're going back to remote learning in a lot of places like New York City, and meat, gas, bananas, everything else is costing way, way more. That is more important to people than messaging from the White House. So what do we do to fix it?
That's absolutely way more important. And to the point of vaccination, we're seeing the entire cast of SNL. They all came down with COVID. They're all double vaccinated, probably have their 15th booster shot already, and they all wear masks all the time, and they still got the new variant. So my point of view is that we should be worrying about things that we can change or things that we can fix. This Build Back Better bill is not one of the things that we should be using to improve the situation. I mean, like you said, there's supply chain issues, there's inflation, gas has gone up. I was at the grocery store, a whole chicken is like $20 now. It's ridiculous. I mean, there's so many more important things we should be addressing than trying to give Biden credit for increased vaccinations. By the way, in New York City, only 28% of young black people in between the ages of 18 and 44 are vaccinated, making New York City basically segregated again. But Jim Crow Joe doesn't want to address that. He wants to just talk about meaningless messaging.
I've not heard that nickname. Thank you for that, Olivia.
You're welcome.
But and they're also not being honest about that. They are not addressing that at all. They just want to blame the unvaccinated as a giant MAGA blob. It's much more complicated than that. There's a reason people have a great deal of distrust for the government. You're not going to hear solutions for that anytime soon from this administration. Party panelists sticking around. Much more show to go.